What's going on? You're in the Beat Sessions. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about the return of Kendrick Lamar and this new record, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. That was released on May 13th. This is studio album number 5 for Kendrick, and it follows 2017's Damn, which is a masterpiece. I'll just say it flat out. It is a brilliant record. Won him a Pulitzer for music, which, I mean, is a massive accomplishment in and of itself. But I think what's more impressive is that he's the first artist to win that award with a composition that wasn't based in either jazz or classical music. And he was only like 30 years of age. This man is brilliant. I marvel at him as a songwriter. All of his records are fabulous to listen to. Sonically, they're their own unique experience. And so I really appreciate him for what he brings to the table musically, but lyrically, I would say is where his true brilliance lies. And if not already, I think sooner than later, he's going to fall into that upper tier of songwriters that people regard as poets. I really think that his lyricism is nothing short of poetic. He has that ability as a writer to paint a picture, to frame a scene in a way that puts the listener just right there, right in the nitty gritty of it, and make you feel any and all emotions that are possible. There's very few songwriters / poets that are able to be that evocative. It doesn't come along very often. So it's why I always look forward to Kendrick putting out new material. This new record is definitely embracing that. And I mean, just as a wordsmith, his ability as a poet, the different rhyme schemes that he puts together, the different styles that he's able to rap within. I mean, it might be a silly point to even bring up, but I would argue that if William Shakespeare was still alive today, he would be a big fan of Kendrick Lamar for not only the weight of let's call them soliloquies, let's call them songs, those poems that he's putting out, the weight of the content, but the wordplay and how there's just as much strength there as there is in the content. And so, talk about other literary concepts. There's another thing on this record. Oftentimes he's writing in a way that feels like a stream of consciousness. It feels like, William Faulkner, think of Virginia Woolf. This is a style that I really love. It's very unique and it's very difficult to do, to capture the human mind, which, most of us have short attention spans. It's no wonder that our minds are all over the place sometimes. And, this is something, it's why it's so difficult to do this. And you have to be very succinct within your writing. And I think that more often than not, Kendrick on this record is hitting the mark with that type of lyrical content. And it makes this album really fun to listen to. He's just killing it. This record is a pretty heavy affair. It's 18 songs, big on theme, big on concept here. The first disc, I would say, tackles more of personal struggles that he's dealing with regards to relationships with his family and other loved ones. And then the second disc feels more like managing those feelings with relation to society. So I like the dynamic there and the different parts of this record. And I mean, just not the type of album that you're going to be able, for most of us anyway, to just throw on whenever you want. This is a record that's going to make you sit down and think. It's going to force you to really bring just as much to the table emotionally that Kendrick is. I like that about this record as well. It really is. It's going to be the type of affair that when you find yourself struggling, kind of in that down phase maybe, and you need to look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself that hard truth, this is the type of record that I think you can throw on and help, pull that process along, help begin that process, ameliorate that pain, that angst that you're feeling. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think that it's just one of the many things about this record that make it so admirable, that Kendrick really is, dealing with some hard truths and really facing some tough truths on this record. But he's getting some help from some spiritual advisors on this album. I think it's really cool. There's some great guest features on this record, including partner Whitney Alford. She actually acts as a narrator, kind of a sense of consciousness on this first part. And we talk about how the content is definitely geared more towards his personal relationships. This part is going to kick off with United in Grief. I love the choir intro. It's got this gospel feel spoken word that comes in with a simple piano riff. And then he just goes to work. Probably about a minute later, it's got this great jazz feel. Love the influence on that. I love the frenzied percussion. When that kicks in, it makes this song feel kind of like the jazzy electro stuff that that Radiohead was doing with Kid A, And there's a couple moments on this record where I'm feeling that Kid A influence as well. I like that sonically. I think it lends itself well to this overall experience, which has some electronic and a lot of minimalism, honestly. I think the minimalism especially is something that allows his word flow and the lyrics to stand out and really be the highlight of this record, which they are. N95 is your second track. The intro is sung, another one of those great things that he can do with his voice as a hip hop artist. I love the melodies that he creates. It's got this trap percussion and then big shiny synths. I love this track, and it hits hard. It feels like Rick Ross, honestly. It's got that kind of like Miami, Florida kind of hip hop vibe to it. Die Hard is your fourth song, kicks right in. I like the way that this song it's a little mellow, but it keeps the energy and the flow of the record going brilliantly. I like the R&B feel of this record, and it's something that takes hold quite a bit on this album. Father Time is your fifth track. This is a remarkable song in the way it starts off with this spoken word, and then the music is so minimal that spoken word still makes this track feel like it's a cappella the whole way through. Plus there's a funny line about Kanye and Drake that I like on this song. One of those lighter moments. Not all Shakespeare is tragedy. There's definitely some comedy worked in there. Rich in Spirit, your interlude is your sixth track. It's got this frenzied piano, recitative vocal, and then it leads into Rich Spirit, your seventh track, which is another great R&B moment. It's driven by minimalism. Really like that song. And then it gets into your eighth track. This is We Cry Together, which is going to be one of the two big controversial moments on this album. This song samples the song June by Florence and the Machine, which I think is great considering that they put out a record on Friday. And Florence Welch, she's the type of songwriter that's very personal as well. Definitely a very big comparison there between both of these songwriters. But I like that even in that little bit that she makes an appearance on this record. This song has got a big vocal intro, and then it's this back and forth between two partners, a man and a woman, and it's brutal. It hits really hard to the degree of, think of like Eminem doing Kim or even Stan. Even with Dido and the melody and Stan, I still feel like that's a tough song to listen to. That's not a song that I just casually throw on often just to jam out to. That's not to say that it's a bad song, but it serves a very unique purpose. And especially I think within this composition, considering the emotional gravity of everything that's going on with Kendrick here, that this moment works within the album. But I'm still laughing about one person that reviewed this that's like, I can't see any reason why anybody would subject themselves to this song just on their own. But I think I think part of it's kind of hit and miss, but I think it hits more than misses. And so I like it on this record. I think it works as a very interesting penultimate track to close out this first disc, leading into Purple Hearts, which is your final track on that first disc. And I like this song a lot. It's got big percussion. I like the light, spacey synth. And he raps with this great melody, and it definitely suits the R&B feel of this track. Great way to close out the first side of the project. It's going to lead into Count Me Out, which we talk about the narrators, and Eckhart Tolle, German thinker, is going to kind of act as that sense of consciousness on this second part. And I love what he brings to the table as far as a thinker. I think given the content of the second half, there's a lot there that resonates with what Kendrick is exploring lyrically. You should look him up. He definitely is a very unique guy. The second part kicks off with Count Me Out. It's got this light electric guitar riff and this great bass element. Kind of reminds me of Wycliffe, honestly. And then I really like when the bass kicks in a little bit. It's got this fuzzy tone. And then when the beat hits, this is a song that has great structure, and I really like when all the components take hold and hit their mark. It's really nicely done. Great structure on that song. Crown is your second track. It's this piano driven ballad, great R&B feel again, and one of the better songs lyrically on this album. I think that this, as far as the lyrics on Crown, one of the better moments in that regard on this album. Silent Hill is your third track. It's got this brief barbershop intro, and then good contemporary feel. It's got this big minimal beat, synths working around that, very ambient in that regard. Cool track. It leads into your Savior interlude, which is your fourth song. This is I like this interlude. It's hard rhymes over this great string element, dark strings, very foreboding, and then this tiny piano bit at the end leads into your fifth song, Savior. And this is a fire song. I really like this final stretch of the record. Actually, these last 5 songs are really quite awesome. It's got this minimal beat. Love the piano, the harmonies, and the way they structure the chorus and differentiate between the verse. I really like that little bit of structure in the song. I love the hook on this particular track as well. It leads into your 6th song, Auntie Diaries, which you get more of that Radiohead Kid A feel in this track. But this song, there's a lot of raw honesty about, and in a good way too, about the transgender community. He's talking about a couple family members, an uncle and a cousin, and how he's come to accept that as an individual, and even more so learning to just find yourself in a place where you just want people to be happy. Don't mess with kids and don't raise my taxes. And other than that, I encourage any and all to do what it takes in the pursuit of happiness. That is your business. I just want every person to be happy at the end of the day. And so the song is controversial because there's use of a word in there that some people, even within context, are arguing doesn't have a good impact. How do I want to say this? It causes a song to maybe lose its gravity. And to a certain degree, I like the way that the word is worked in, because I think it alludes to the idea that for a lot of people, this process of acceptance is not a perfect process. And for a lot of people, and not me, I mean, like I said, I accept everybody for who they are. But for some people, there's this process of, maybe compromising some values. They might be personal, they might be religious. But some people have had to go through that in this, which, creates that complication. And so I think that this song for him captures that essence, and that's a complicated thing. And there's going to be some people that maybe disagree with the way that I'm discussing this even, but I think that more than anything, it captures the complexity of the issue and the way a guy like Kendrick Lamar is uncompromising as well in his art and in conveying that it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be honest. And I appreciate that about the track, even in its imperfections. Your seventh song, Mr. Morale, is an excellent track. It's got this groovy, jaunty beat. I really like the eerie vocal element in it as well. And his flow on this track is spectacular. It's probably at its best on this particular song. Mother I Sober is another pretty big moment on this thing. I love it's got this recitative confessional style and pretty simple. Love the solid piano. I love the vocal harmonies that are coming in and helping to carry this song. Mr. Morale, I'm loving the flow. I would say lyrically, Mother I Sober is probably one of the most powerful moments I've heard lyrically in a very long time. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anything within the last decade that has hit as hard as this song. It's really, it's pretty remarkable, and what is ultimately the penultimate track on this 2-disc set. And then Mirror is your final song. It's got this funky yacht rock feel, great R&B vibe, and I like the refrain here. I choose me, I'm sorry. I choose me, I'm sorry. Not in a bad way. I think that as we grow older, and especially as you learn to balance life's responsibilities, to a certain extent, you have to be selfish. You have to have a level of self-care in order to just keep some type of mental sanity, to keep yourself centered, so that, those other people that you're committed to that rely on you can depend on you, and so that you can be that rock for those people. And it's easier said than done. And this album is definitely the perfect exploration of how complex that is, of all the good and all the bad that goes along with being a father, with being an artist, with being a human being. Being a human is a complex thing, and we all go about it our own different way. And I think that even though Kendrick is going about it in his own way, this record, there's a lot about it that has this just universal appeal. And I think he's speaking to all of us, many of us, if not all of us. I'm going to vinyl please this thing for sure. I'm very impressed with this record. Probably my favorite album of the year so far. I'll go as far to say that. But I hope you enjoyed this album. Hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2022, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.